Good day and welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities right through April of this year, 2021. Lipolis Electric, don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis. And Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, plus White Plains Hospital at White Plains. We say thank you to all of our heroes throughout this COVID-19 pandemic. We are joined here today on the Cup of Joe political show by Westchester Assemblyman Steven Otis. Steve Otis represents the 91st District, the Sound Shore area from New Rochelle right up to the Greenwich, Connecticut state line. Steve Otis, we thank you for joining us again here on Westchester Talk Radio, and we'll get right into it. The COVID color designations around Westchester seem to be lifting now. Does this mean we seem to be heading in the right direction?
Well, I think that there are two factors that went into this. And John, great to be with you, and to all your listeners and viewers. I hope everyone is being careful and being safe. But we're far from out of the COVID situation. The cluster zones, and we had 6 of them in Westchester, 5 yellow and 1 orange zone, were established starting in October, and that was the point where the State Department of Health wanted to do more restricted rules in areas where we had higher infection rates. Over time, the metric that the state was using to evaluate what was going on moved away from infection rates to hospitalization capacity, and that's what allowed the state just yesterday to eliminate almost all the zones in the entire state. They continue to look at infection rates. They continue to look at hospitalization capacity. Our region is actually, throughout the hospitalization analysis, Mid-Hudson Valley has been one of the best in terms of hospital capacity, ICU bed capacity. But we're not out of the woods. We have these new strains of the virus. We have not enough quantity of vaccines. So the rollout of the vaccinations is going to take many months. And so everyone should continue to be careful, social distance, wear masks, and be careful, especially in indoor situations, wash your hands and all those sorts of things. At the same time, the infection rates are going down a little. We've gotten over the holiday sort of bump, and it is going to continue to be something that is monitored, and the adjustments will be made based upon the facts on the ground.
How do we get enough vaccine in this state? And I understand that every state needs a certain amount, and the federal government has to apportion vaccines a certain way. Yet it seems that we came up a bit short, at least so far.
Well, this is a nationwide problem. I mean, I think the reality is that the federal government, when the vaccines were discovered and by the 2 companies so far that have been approved, there should have been a broader production effort to produce more vaccines. We're seeing shortages all across the country. We're seeing canceled appointments in different parts of the country right now. So the Biden administration is looking to ramp up production. That is going to take some time, though, and so it is very frustrating. And one of the things that I and other legislative offices were trying to troubleshoot and help our constituents in terms of navigating getting appointments and filling appointment slots as people cancel, because there's lots of jockeying around. You may have an appointment on the state site, and then your pharmacy says, oh, we can fit you in. And so there's some movement and some hope. But bottom line is we have a fraction of the number of vaccines that we need in the state, and this is a nationwide problem.
We've seen numbers, COVID numbers in this state and around the tri-state area go up and down since the holidays. Are people slacking off a bit in what they're doing when it comes to personal protection, all the things you talked about, for example, what we need to do still?
Well, I think it varies. I think that the news sort of helps send the message to what people do. People hopefully are paying attention. But one of the things that the state did through the contact tracing program is identify what are the sources of spread. And so that educates people about what they should be doing or not doing. And 75% of the spread is in small gatherings, even family gatherings outside your pod, but other kinds of group gathering situations and social situations represent 75% of the spread based upon the analysis that the Department of Health is doing. So that is part of why we're able to open up with businesses, with restaurants. We can eliminate the zones for the time being because they really were not the current source of spread. But we all have to pay attention and follow and see what the new statistics show. But people have to be careful because even if you've been vaccinated, the virus is still out there. Most people have not been vaccinated yet. And we're especially trying to get vaccines to those elder individuals with underlying conditions. And I've made a priority of concerns of people who are not in a senior facility or a congregate setting, but just are at home in an apartment, in a house, but they're a senior citizen. We want to make sure those individuals get vaccines.
And coming up soon, we have something else to watch out for, a lot of contact, Valentine's Day soon.
Well, hopefully that's just with one other person. So
right, hopefully, right, and maybe one day or night, as it turns out too. So, because with the super spreader events that we've seen, and so many different events that were held down the stretch of the campaign around the country and during the holidays too, obviously that ramped numbers up, and hopefully we continue to move now back in the right direction. Westchester Assemblyman, Sound Shore area, 91st Assembly District, Steve Otis. State budget, that's going on now. And of course, April 1st comes up pretty quick when it comes to getting the budget done.
Well, so this week I have three major budget hearings: transportation, environmental conservation, and education. And these are all day and into the night ventures. But for the next few weeks, this is what the legislature is doing, is pouring into the governor's proposal, hearing from commissioners, hearing from interest and advocacy groups. And we have real challenges because COVID took a hit out of all of our budgets at the state, county, and local level, school district level. And so trying to piece things together, maintain services at a time, especially for school districts where they were held last year even on funding, and their costs are going up just to deal with remote learning and other kinds of COVID-related expenses that change the way they do business. So it's a real struggle, but we're focused on trying to get the best job done in terms of hopefully big increase in federal revenues with the new administration to help support these efforts until our economy can recover and our revenues can recover.
Now, a couple of controversial issues have come through the state of New York, things that we've talked about the last few years, and they seem to be closer to happening: legalizing marijuana and legalizing online gambling in this state. Do you think this will get done during this session?
Well, it certainly, both issues have been around for a few years and have gotten a lot of scrutiny. With the adult use of marijuana issue, it still remains important that if it's done, that we do it right, we do it smart. We have the experience of a number of other states that have done it and can see where they've made mistakes and where they've done it well. I think that it is a challenging issue. But it is inevitable, I think, at some point, because many of our neighboring states, some of them have already done it, others are considering it. And so you also have the criminal justice equity issues, equality issues involved in that, that we are continuing to, we sort of decriminalized it, but it's still not fully legal. And yet in neighboring states, it is legal. And so there's a rationality to not having people punished for something that is legal a few steps away.
And online gambling, do you think that will happen this budget session?
again, this is one of these circumstances where a number of other states are doing it. And so it sort of says, why are we not providing the same playing field for our businesses here? A longtime proponent of that is my colleague Gary Pretlow from Mount Vernon, who's chair of the Committee on the Assembly. And I think both of these are on the table for the budget discussion. But if the budget process or the legislative process is never an instantaneous, oh, yes, no, there is deliberation and there is back and forth. We hear from the public, we hear from each other, and there's an exchange of ideas, and that's how we get outcomes. And deliberation and being careful and thoughtful on any of these issues is a good thing, not a bad thing.
We look for ways to raise tax revenue, especially in the COVID economy, with maybe legalizing marijuana and online gambling. We take that and we take the monies generated from that, and yet we expect a certain amount of money to come in from the feds, as you mentioned. Are we relying too much on the federal government, on the Biden administration now? Are there more things maybe we can do here in New York to help ourselves?
I think that especially as in the time of the Great Depression, the time of World War II, major challenges for our whole country, the federal government is actually the more equitable place to raise revenues, and at least at first blush, let's see what they're able to provide, because that evens things out across the entire country. But I think there will be some increases in revenues in New York this year, and they'll be calibrated towards our budget needs and also what the federal government is doing. But again, there are a lot of proposals out there. They all deserve a scrutiny. They're all on the table, but we should proceed carefully and make sure that we do revenues that are not harmful in other ways, and that we do revenues that actually can be collected. Everyone has a revenue idea, but if the revenue is not something that we really are going to get revenue from, that there are complications in terms of how they would be collected or their other impacts, they need to be considered carefully.
Now, you are a member of the State Education Committee in the Assembly, and the controversy continues about in-person schooling or virtual schooling. Do you think by the end of this school year, everybody will be back in the classroom full-time, or are we better off than, considering it's getting later in the year now, are we better off continuing with this same model of maybe some in school and the rest virtual?
Well, the hybrid model is where we are right now, and I think what the future brings is going to depend upon the science to a certain degree. I think everybody would like to have everyone back in the classroom full time, and I think that is absolutely the goal. But it is going to be determined by what the latest science is. Now, we have some reports that have come out, some studies in the last few days indicating it's safe for kids to be back in school as long as schools are following the correct procedures. So I think that's where we're going, and I think that's a good thing. But we have to make sure the school districts have the resources for masks, for space, for proper distancing, and other kinds of protections, and testing. It needs to be part of that program, and that is going to cost money. So school districts are sort of deciding some of this on their own, and they're hearing from their parents and their residents, and are coming up with slightly different ways of doing it district by district. But I would like to see everyone back in school, and I think that generally the word is that it can be done safely.
Assemblyman Steve Otis, we thank you as always. Thank you for joining us on Westchester Talk Radio. Let's talk again soon, and Happy New Year to you and yours.
John, always a pleasure. Happy New Year to you, and let's do this again soon. It's always enjoyable, and there's a lot of stuff going on, so many other issues we can be talking about.
And as they say, like I pointed out a few minutes ago, April 1st comes up pretty quick, right?
Yep. Well, we're hard at work. So, all right, thank you, John.
Thank you, Steve, and we'll talk again soon. Much appreciated here on Westchester Talk Radio, Cup of Joe political show, produced by Sharc Creative and made possible by Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities through April 2021. Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, Parksville and Realty in Bronxville, and Michael Labriola, Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk. Catch all of our Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube.